Welcome back to Obsolete Automotive. I'm Austin. Be sure to like and subscribe. What you got here is a 1962 Plymouth Belvedere. Four-door sedan, of course, but the cool part is what's under the hood. Get a little preview of what's going to be under the hood right here. Golden Commando power. Now for 1962, that means you got a 361 big block. As you can see, this car is a big block coupled to a 3-speed manual transmission. It does have power brakes, and interestingly enough, it does have a battery heat shield here. It doesn't appear to be a police package car, but it has some things that would be similar to that, like this battery heat shield there. Not sure what the story is on that. I don't really know much of the history of the car other than I was told it belonged to a doctor in Washington State, close to Seattle. I actually drove this car back from Seattle, Washington. There's a whole video series on that car going across the country, over 3,000 miles, close to 3,500 miles, I believe. And you can watch all that. There'll be some links in the description in case you wanted to check that out. The main thing about this car is it's a full-size car, but in reality, it's more like a mid-size car. So Plymouth and Dodge decided to shrink the body a little bit, and kind of, some say they heard some inside info that Chevy and Ford were going to do the same thing. I'm not sure what the truth is, but they did make the cars a little bit smaller. The main thing to note is they have a long hood, so a long front, but a short deck. So the rear end is a lot shorter than the front. Now that wasn't the most favorite thing to the buying public. It'd be more favorable when the Mustang and cars like that came out, the short deck, long hood style. But this was kind of one of the first to try this. I believe they called it forward flare in 1962. The styling of this car, some find ugly, some find cool. I personally like it, but it might take a certain kind of person to like it. You can see, like I said, the rear of the car is very short. This car is a unibody construction. It does have a front bolt-in frame for the engine cradle, but it is a unibody, so there's no conventional frame underneath this car, which they touted as being more solid, less noise, stronger, all that. And all your new cars are unibody now, so I guess they were right in that regard. We take a look inside the trunk, which is full of stuff, but I will say that the trunk of this car is small in comparison to some of my other cars. With that short deck, that's just kind of how it is. You can see where the spare tire and jack is and everything. And a lot of things that are unique on this 62, such as, look at the way the front of the trunk lid is. The trapezoidal shape there, the rear glass the same way. By shrinking this car down, they kind of had some proportions off. They had a certain styling. Virgil Exner of the Forward Look design. I think he eventually got kind of canned for all this, so they hired a Ford designer to come in and kind of later on make everything a lot more bland and kind of fit into the norms. The styling of this, I guess, is kind of radical for the times. Very unique, though. On the back, there's your gas fill, which is kind of commonplace in the 60s. This car, interestingly enough, has 4 taillights. Normally, most of these cars, if they had these inboard ones, they'd be reverse lights. But I have seen a couple other examples that had the 4 taillights. I'm not sure why that is, what the reasoning is for that. Maybe it's early production versus late production, or maybe you could option it that way at your dealer. Or frankly, somebody could have just added that at some point, but it definitely looks factory. You can see the body lines of this thing are quite interesting, quite unique. I mean, as I was talking about before, even the back glass has a unique shape. It has a point on the end of it. And I believe this was a 1-year only back glass. Other things to note, even the design flows into the back door. You can see it's got this bump up. Was it necessary? Not necessarily, but it was just styling cues more than anything else. This car did come from the Pacific Northwest, so it does have some rust issues. This car was going to end up being a parts car for a two-door, so that's kind of when I swooped in to save it, because there aren't a whole lot of big block stick shift sedans remaining. Unfortunately, most of them become parts cars, so I had to have it. It's oddball. I like oddball cars, so that's why it's here. For what I was told, the original owner of this car, like I said, I think he was a doctor or dentist or something like that, and I was told this was like a dealer demonstration car, and he bought this car after the 62 model year was over. And I think that's what I was kind of led on to be what had happened in terms of the history of this car. I don't really have any confirmation. I don't have any names or anything like that, but from different people that I talked to, that they knew about this car. That's kind of what I was told. And this guy used it to haul. He had a trailer that he, pulled around and taking it on trips and whatnot. Another thing to note, when you come to the front end, those are all the headlights. This car does have 4 headlights, and you would think that traditionally you just have 1 on each end, but we got our high beams here on the inboard in the grille. Like I said, a lot of people think that's kind of odd styling. I guess it is a little odd, definitely unique. I personally like it because I like weird stuff. But all in all, this car doesn't have a whole lot of options. It's kind of like, almost like a police spec car, big block, power brakes, and not much else. It is a Belvedere, so it's the middle of the line. You had the Savoy, which is the model that was the cheapest, the Belvedere, which is this one, then you had the Fury, which was top of the line, as well as the Sport Fury, which was the tippy top. This car is brown, as you can see. I believe they call it luminous brown metallic, which I don't know if brown and luminous kind of go hand in hand, but it is a unique color nonetheless, and you don't really see them too often. Next, we'll talk about the interior of this 62 Plymouth. Let's go over the controls and instrumentation of this 62 Plymouth. We'll start on the left side of the dash. You might be wondering what that is. If this car was equipped with an automatic, there would be a lever here to take it in and out of park, and on the left side here would have been the push buttons for the automatic transmission, drive, reverse, and all that. This car, being a stick shift, obviously doesn't have that. Controls on the left side here, we have a brake release. You pull this knob out and it will release the parking brake down there, which is foot activated. So we'll pull this and that will release the parking brake. Obviously, in order to set the parking brake, you just push it back down. We have our headlight switch here on the left side of the dash as well. 1 click is park, 2 click is headlights, and this is also the dimmer, so you can rotate it left and right to make the dash cluster brighter or dimmer. And if you turn it all the way to the left, it will turn on the dome light for the interior. Turn signal, obviously. Here on the dash, we have our low oil pressure warning lamp, alternator gauge, gasoline. This is where a clock would have went if it was optioned with one. Our temperature gauge, our speedometer with odometer. This car has 100,731 miles. On the far right, we have our heater controls. This here's the blower switch. We got 3 speeds, low, medium, and high. And then our controls are push button, so heater, defrost, and cool is just an air vent. And this right here is how you change the temperature. Up is cool, down is warm, as the arrow instructs. Down here on the bottom right, we have our wiper switch. 1 click, just 1 speed wipers on this car. Our ignition switch, obviously. And this being stick shift, we have our gear shift lever here. We do have an ashtray, which would have had a cigarette lighter, which is missing. That's an aftermarket oil pressure gauge. We do have an AM radio. This is the speaker grill. Up here is our dash vents for the defrost. We do have a glove box which has a lock. This glove box is kind of small in comparison to a lot of older cars. It's actually kind of like a lot like new cars in the fact that this is just a kind of a fiber plastic piece, and there's actually no interior walls back here. So the glove box pivots on the lid. A lot of new cars are like that now. A lot of older cars, this would actually be one whole compartment, but on this one, the glove box interior is just attached to the lid. So actually, if you put too much stuff on there, it might fall out. So you also notice that this car does not have the typical recessed areas down here for your drink cups. Probably one of the only old cars that I have that doesn't have that. Just kind of funny. As far as on the floor, we have our accelerator pedal, brake pedal, clutch pedal. That's the parking brake, which we've already talked about, and of course our high-low beam dimmer down there. Now on the door, that's how you open, and we have a manual crank window. Sun visors, of course. Headliner is in decent shape. This interior has been redone. It's in a very similar style to the original, but it was redone at some point. Door panels are original. You can see the back seat. Of course, our horn ring here activates the horn. As far as locks, got the traditional push buttons there. Hinges need some oil. Check out the back seat. I did install these seat belts. There's actually a video on that installation in case anybody wanted to put seat belts in their Classic. I will note that the 62 Plymouths, they have factory seatbelt mounts for the front seats. And whoever put the front seat belts in this car originally didn't use them. So when I went to put the replacement seat belts in, I went ahead and just used the holes that they had already drilled, but they're actually factory anchors. So if you are going to put seat belts in these 62 and up MoPars, you can just use the factory anchors. See the headliner in pretty decent shape. For the most part, this car is original. And of course, crank windows, and that's how you open the door. Rear doors have plunger top locks as well. Next thing we need to do, take this thing for a test drive. This 62 Plymouth is equipped with a 3-speed manual transmission on the column, stick shift. In order to get into your different gears, you still have an H pattern. So reverse and first is on one, and then second and third is on the other. So how this functions is, in order to get into different gears, you'll push the clutch in, obviously. To go into reverse, you'll pull the gear shift lever towards you and then go up, and that would be reverse. In order to get into first, you're still pulling it towards you and then down. That's first gear. In order to get into second, you'll just lift it back up towards neutral, and you'll see it automatically pops into the other range. See how it just drops in? You don't have to push it forward, but just for ease of explaining, it's forward. So forward and up is second, forward and down is third. So the middle is neutral. You can go back and forth. So first, back towards you and down. It'll automatically drop forward. Up is second, down is third. And then reverse is back towards you and up. So another view that might make it easier to see what's going on, the gear shift lever, when in neutral, will move back and forth. In order to get into reverse, we obviously have the clutch in, we'll pull it back towards ourselves and then go up. That's reverse. In order to get into first gear, it's back towards us again and down. Now shifting into second, you'll just lift the gear shift lever up, it'll drop forward and you continue going up. So watch this. Now we're going to shift into second from first. We push the clutch pedal in, lift the gear shift up, it'll drop forward, and then you continue to go up, and that's second. So forward and up is second. Third gear is forward and down. Hopefully that makes a little more sense. Like I said, it's H pattern, so neutral is in the middle, back towards you and down is first, away from you and up is second, away from you and down is third, and reverse is back towards you and up. This 62 Plymouth actually drives pretty nice. The interior space is kind of small, to be honest. I have to have this seat kind of adjusted all the way back. This big block 361's definitely got a lot of pull, especially when it's coupled to this 3-speed manual transmission. The car handles pretty good, as you can see on these curves. This doesn't have power steering, but it does have power brakes, so this car does stop pretty good, and really the power steering isn't missed. Just one more thing to go bad. You know, I'd rather have less options myself, mainly because I drive these cars a lot. I don't want to have a bunch of stuff that could go bad on a road trip, or a part to fail, or what have you. And driving this 3-speed manual, it's pretty easy. I actually prefer the stick shift being on the column. It's more comfortable for me for the most part. I'd say these cars are kind of nimble due to their size and the design of the mechanics. And you just really can't go wrong with a big block stick shift car. There's just something about it that just drives nice. Got enough power when you need to go places. Enough power to pull things, haul stuff. And especially when you got a stick shift, it just, I don't know, makes you feel like you're one with the machine or whatever. shifting with purpose, not granny shifting or taking my time trying to find gears. You know where the gears are. You just shift with gusto, so I've been saying. Hopefully this stick shift footage don't piss anybody off. Now this car is a non-synchro first gear, so in order to shift into first gear, you pretty much have to be at a complete stop, or you're going to have to be proficient in the skill of double clutching. So keep that in mind if you have one of these cars that's a stick shift. Pretty much all these 60s cars are going to be a non-synchro first. So when you come up to stop, then you can put it in first. This car was fun to drive all the way across the country. Like I said, it had the power and the get up to get where it needed to go, and we had this thing fully loaded, 2 people with all our luggage plus crap that we had bought, tools and everything else. So this car really did do its job as it was designed to. It is a car after all. These things are meant to be driven. You know, long stretches on the highway is good for this thing. As with most old cars, people want to know how long it is. This car from end to end is about 17.5 feet. So it's a lot shorter than some cars, but it's still not a small car by any means. It's actually quite big, but it definitely looks smaller just from the design of it. The way, you know, it's got that short deck, long hood. You can kind of really see it here from the side, what I'm talking about. Other things to note, 1962, a Plymouth Savoy with a 6-cylinder won the Mobile Gas Economy run with 24.61 miles per gallon, which is pretty good at the time, but they had some very trained drivers in order to get those kind of numbers. But it did win. This was, I think, the 6th year a Plymouth full-size car won that class, so just a fun fact. Other things that were kind of new for 62 or kind of still going on for 62 was for automatics, and I guess all the cars, the transmission hump inside is smaller because you had that 727 aluminum torque flot, so you had more legroom inside. These cars, 2nd year for the full-size Plymouths to have an alternator. You gotta think most cars at this time still had generators. Plymouth and other Chrysler products had alternators at this point. Torsion bar front suspension, which is standard fare for MoPars of the era, and all in all, it's just a good, I consider it a mid-size car because you can really get this fit into a lot of parking spaces, easy to drive, easy to maneuver. You can see out of it really good as well, and frankly, it's a good car to drive and enjoy. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video on this 1962 Plymouth Belvedere. It's pretty cool that something like this still survives. You don't really see, you know, big block stick shift sedans much anymore because I think unfortunately most get turned into parts cars. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more cool videos on cool cars and road trips and other things related. If you want to show a little support, be sure to check out the Patreon, and also don't forget to check out the Instagram at Obsolete Automotive, as well as the new Facebook discussion group. Links to all those things will be posted in the description of this video, so be sure to check it out. And again, thanks for the support, and thanks for following along. We'll catch you on the next one.